you, it doesn't work as well.
Okay. Good to know.
Learning something new every day.
Hello.
And here we are for an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw, and it's a Thursday. It's a Thursday with our new schedule, which means that it is 6 p.m. Eastern Time at the start of this. And what does that mean? It means that we have been doing some dope shit all day. Up until this point, we've had some meetings with our investors. We've had some meetings with some business-related stuff in terms of a cannabis social network named LeafWire, how to integrate with them, how to meet other companies and like-minded individuals who might want to be on our series called Being High. There's a lot of really cool shit in the works, and so I'm really excited for this episode. I know it's a Thursday, so it's a short episode, which means we only go for 45 minutes, and then afterwards we're on Patreon for our Tier 2 call, which is, I believe, an hour and a half.
Yes.
So this is our new weekday schedule, Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can join us for a Zoom call every Thursday now. So if you're Tier 2 or Tier 3, that is available to you. I'm going to stop talking now just because, again, I'm super excited, but I know I'm talking really, really fast.
Because there's a lot to be excited about.
No, go ahead.
A lot to be excited about.
That's
now.
right. We're all ready to jump in.
A lot of shifts, a lot of moving parts. And yeah, we got some investor meetings still going down. Meeting with some of that, getting some things finalized there. And yeah, doing all sorts of great stuff. Meeting with local businesses, getting some karaoke in. It's yeah, it's been a good time.
Oh my God.
We're having fun.
I want to say, and I know I've talked about this before because, you know, we have our retreats, and at retreats, sometimes we'll see people who come to more than one retreat. And sometimes the first retreat they come to, they've never done karaoke. And so it's a big deal. They're just like, I've never done this, or I've done it once or twice. And then they get up there and they kind of belt it out. And they're like, yeah, I pushed through. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then after you push through, as with everything, eventually it's just something you can do now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was this huge mountain to climb, but then you've climbed it, right? And then it's just, well, can I get used to being up here? Can I get used to this new change in my life, this new person that I've become just through walking through this door, going through this challenge? Can I do that? Yeah. Right? And that's why I enjoy seeing people come back to retreats or come back to karaoke, as with yourself and with Amanda and even me, more and more when I come back to karaoke, because it becomes less about facing something and more about just fucking enjoying the fact that you're there. It's not about like, yes, I made it to karaoke. You're just like, I am at karaoke. And you really dig it. You really get into it. And it's because, why not? The journey that you've created in your head is gone. Because it was only ever in your head. You could have went up the first time and just enjoyed yourself if you didn't have something to prove. All right? And that's the point, is you don't have anything to prove. Who are you proving it to? Yourself? That's fucking ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Why are you proving it to yourself? Because you're putting yourself through a test? Show me what I'm made of. That sounds ridiculous, right? And it's just that. Just let go. Just let go, move forward. Allow yourself to see what you're capable of when you're not doubting everything that you do. When you just dig into what you do and allow it to inform the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, what you'll find is that you're actually quite good at it. You don't need to be as afraid as you might think you need to be. But to face that, you got to face your fears, which means you might want to stumble, make mistakes, do all that. Fucking go up, crack out a song in karaoke and get off going, oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. It's like, yeah, but it existed, as opposed to the one that didn't, in the world where you never did that.
Yeah. Yeah, because to figure that out, to find that, you gotta do stuff. Like, you gotta do stuff to figure out where those stumbles are. To even allow yourself to stumble, you gotta do things and just jump into new things and fully go all in on stuff. Like, you gotta do those things and be willing to, like, just take those leaps to even see where the stumbles might be. And so, yeah, like, why not? What else are you living for? You know, trying to maintain something, trying to hold on to some sense of I don't know, like security by not being judged by people, but not putting yourself out there. It's like, that's going to be happening one way or the other. So, and at the end of the day, people aren't really seeing you anyway. They're seeing some sort of projection they're making. So, yeah, why not? Why not jump in?
Right. And even if they do judge you, they're late because you've already judged yourself. You know, they're only going to be able to impact you if you think that you are so at the mercy of everyone else and their experience, and what do you have to risk? You know, when we talk about what we're holding on to, it's like we're holding on to what's not happening. You know, the concept, the fear, the anxiety, the worry, all of those things are not happening. You're just worried that they could happen. You're worried that you will mess up, that you've done something wrong. But it's just in jumping in, you find that rhythm. And you know, like just before, like we both tried to talk, and you know, I was just like, oh shit, you know, and then I was like, but so what? Like, so what that I wanted to talk at the same time as you, and then I was like, all right, yeah, you know, I'm gonna chill out, you know, and then I'm gonna try to jump in again, and I'm just gonna keep jumping despite my opinion of the jump. And despite feeling nervous and being worried that I'm going to stumble, or being worried that, you know, things are just going to be weird or awkward or just not perfect. And, you know, just to say, howdy, Marie. I love these. She said, howdy, dude. I'm just like, hey, y'all. You know, and I'm just going to embrace being able to play with reality, to play with the moments, because there is no standard that I need to meet right now other than the one that I'm coming up with. And there's no judgment I need to worry about that I'm going to get from someone else, because I'm already going to judge myself before they get here. You know, so what am I really risking? You know, what judgment am I really worried about feeling when I already am the first one to judge it? And then all I really see when I see someone else's judgment is validation of my own. Well, I knew it. I knew that they were going to think I was a piece of shit. And that's why I thought of that standard. And, you know, they've only confirmed something that I already decided before they gave me the confirmation of what I came up with. And all that shit isn't happening. And I'm just going to fucking jump in anyways. And if it feels like I'm stumbling, you know, that's a part of getting your balance. A part of finding your balance is falling off balance.
It's the only way you can know the difference.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can know the difference between balance and imbalance is to experience them both.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes you got to experience some off balance times to realize the not consequence, but just what you're doing to yourself, you know, when you are going back and forth with like whatever you're focused on, wherever that, you know, judgment lies. It's like looking that it's just, you know, your own stuff.
Pretty much.
I don't know. I totally lost. Anyway.
I think, okay, so we've talked about this numerous times in the past, and it's oh my God, it's so fucking important. And you can walk your way around it as many ways as you'd like to, but eventually what you come down to is just the fact that you don't know what life would be like if you didn't doubt yourself. Like, you've had glimpses of it, you have moments of it, but there's no way to know what that life is like, because the very urge to know what life will be like without doubt comes from doubt. And so eventually, you know, all the conversation, all the fucking shit behind us, you know, talking about the ego and control and blah, 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 blah. And you can do all that, and it can become another way of enforcing the ego. It can become another sense of control. But for what? For the idea of you. It's not actually you. It's the idea of you, because it's the only thing that can think it's in control. You can only feel like you're in control when you are invested in the idea that there's a you to be in control.
Controller.
Absolutely, but it doesn't actually exist to the you that is, the you that's not the idea. See, and that's the important thing, is you can get lost in this fucking thought web where you're like, oh God, I got to make sure that I'm being myself. But that's not you. The you that's thinking that's not even thinking about it from the perspective of you. Because if it was, you'd go, well, that's impossible. How can I be anything other than what I am? How can I be anything other than what I am? Not what I think I am. And that's the rub. You're already it. As soon as you try to go, yeah, what is that? You're fucked. That doesn't work. You're back in the thoughts. And it's because there's some soothing sense of control there. But there's no life in it. There's just an ongoing fucking arduous journey of self-imposed weight. There's no life there. And so the alternative is to let go. To let go, which means when you go, oh, fuck, I made a mistake. Go, nah. And that's what I'm labeling it, but I don't know it's that. Even just go, yeah. And I'm making it about me now. And be okay with that. Because again, do you expect yourself to go from a state of mind where you're always thinking about yourself to a state of mind where you're not? That's ridiculous, like immediately, and yet it's not. We do it in glimpses all the time, but it's a trap to think it's a place to get to rather than a place that is. It's a trap to think it's somewhere you're working your way to by disentangling all of your things. That's just another way of holding on to it, and to who you think you are, and it's what strangles you. And so the alternative is to go, fuck it, I don't know, I'm just gonna fucking do what I want. I'm gonna do what I want. But if I'm not what I think I am, then what I want changes. And at the end of the day, what I want is just to be good with myself, which means to be just good with whatever it is I'm doing. I could be sitting on a chair. I could be going for a walk. I could be having a conversation. I could be driving a car. I could be running a business. I could be not running a business. I could be living in the woods. I could be going fucking fishing. I could be, out on the dating scene. I could do all of that. And what I need to recognize is whatever it is I'm doing, no matter how much or how much or little I'm thinking about myself, I'm just working my way through. I'm just working my way through. I'm never any of the things that I categorize myself as. So why get caught up in trying to analyze it and judge it? I can't.
No. And it's like realizing that even it cuts down on almost like that sense of a future, like a guarantee, that worry about the future, like even that sense of there being, some guarantee next. It's like you don't have so much of a hold of that, because like that relaxation can only happen right here. The sense of what to do next is like only comes from here, and like all the worry, like the focus in your head is pretty much like outcome based. It's something next. It's something based on this, like things that definitely aren't here right now at all. It's like a future focus to some degree. And if that's not, like, if there isn't, like, there's no future. There's no, of course, it's like such a cliche, like, no, the future doesn't actually exist. But thinking about stuff, like, you're really, for the most part, for me, I'm thinking about the future.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Of the idea of you.
Yeah. And like, there's no guarantees of that whatsoever.
No, because you're not that thing.
Or what?
You're not even that person. That's the problem with all of this, is that, there's no guarantee of those futures, but there's no guarantee the you you're thinking about is even you.
Yeah.
Right? And all of your fears of the future are based on that fucking assumption.
Yeah.
That the you you're thinking about is you. The you that can't deal with change is the you that's going to deal with this change you're afraid of. You don't know that. You're not even the you that can't deal with change. It's just a story you tell yourself. As soon as you stop telling yourself, you can deal with change.
Right, because how can you not be changed? How can you not deal with change when you are changed?
Exactly.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, and then you think about how we like to block and categorize certain sections of like being human, right? You're a baby, you're a toddler, you're a preteen, you're a teen, you're an adult, right? So we even have this like acknowledgement to some degree that you are in change. You are always in a state of change. Then we label certain periods of change like that's all you are. But that's just one example. That's just one way to see the evolution of us just being changed. And so how is it that you can't deal with change when your whole life has been nothing but a series of changes, of just nonstop change. And you've been able to handle it this whole time without having control, without knowing what it meant about you, without knowing where it could go, without having any guarantees, without having any predictions or real specific instructions. You know, like you were just moving forward. That's all. It was just movement. It was just change, moving constantly. And that makes it sound a lot less personal. It's just change. Change is just moving change. You're like, oh shit, okay. That doesn't sound like something that I have to really figure out how to do. It's got its own momentum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got its own thing to it, and it's what's been happening, but it's what was happening without, you know, concern. It was like we had to start doing stuff to try and get in the way of change, to control change. You know, being through your 20s, becoming an adult is basically like a shift to trying to control the changes and creating your life so that you feel good about it. You know, but it's yeah, like the change is still happening one way or the other. It's like you're gonna feel it one way or the other, whether you're along with it or not. You know, like going with it or not, there's gonna be, you know, feedback from reality based on that sensitivity that doesn't have, you know, that sense of a guarantee. You know, like and even just in the last few days with the, you know, the business stuff we've been doing and like, you know, just discussing more different things and admittedly that's the altruism, like the sense of like doing things and posting businesses and like doing all that stuff, like all our reviews and everything has all been like very much something that is monetized by a bunch of people, and like we weren't as much, which I've always never had, you know, second thoughts about sharing those things, but it's like those are all in, you know, good faith contributions to reality, not for a reason that you get bad stuff, but it just like that feels good, you know, like to post stuff and share stuff.
It's what I'd want to experience.
Yeah,
That's very much how I
like,
treat people. It's just like, hey,
yeah,
because I mean, all of us are making a silent prayer for someone to just fucking be decent.
yeah,
Because really, that's all it is. We're just waiting to meet somebody who doesn't put themselves first. That's all we're ever asking. Like when people pray to God for a more peaceful world, they're really praying for individuals to get their head out of their asses.
Yeah, to be more considerate.
You know, and that's it. And so, yeah, that's it. We are changing our environment. We are changing us as the environment. You know, and that's it. There's a power to it. You know, but it's an uncertain road. You don't know how it works, but you can see it almost like the way mycelium grows. You know, you go out, you meet some people, you go out to meet some other people. All of a sudden, after you've met enough people, some other people start to connect through you. And now other possibilities are happening there. We see this on the podcast when the group Zooms. You know, there are little mini groups of people that we don't know about, but they're all friends behind the scenes and they chat outside of the group Zooms and all that. And out of that comes how much potential. Right. How many projects are they going on to? How much are they encouraging each other? Right. You know, but that wouldn't happen if we were trying to put ourselves first. We'd be like, don't form your own groups. Come to the groups. You know, like you're fucking poaching our land. You know?
Right.
That's right.
Oh my gosh.
You're stealing our followers. It's like, no, we don't want followers. We're just all here, just making the most of what's available, our life and that potential to go in any direction without needing to pick a direction that means anything about you. So you just take that step. You're taking that step for the sake of it. Just because you can, because you feel like it, and you don't feel that pressure to take that step.
Yeah. Like just, man, being able to do things without that sense of judgment of yourself, like, and just like that being your experience. Like last couple of days, I've remembered back to like going through sports even, and just the amount of like anxiety, performance anxiety leading up to games and stuff, like senses of dread it got to at given points, all going to play a game.
Yeah.
And that developed like during teenage years.
You weren't going to play. The idea of you was going to play. And it had a measured value. Right?
Yeah.
If you went to play, you wouldn't be thinking about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. If I was there to actually enjoy it. And it was exactly. And so that's obviously your whole life, but yeah, it's interesting how much that can build when you're young, like that measurement, you start measuring yourself.
Yeah.
And the sense of judgment that's built around it that just, spreads into everything just based on yourself. It's just based on your own desire to, have an opinion or a preference or believe that that's correct or true. Like the silliness of that, especially if beyond right now, like anytime I say that, it's like, it seems so cliche, but like right now there isn't anything, there's nothing beyond right now except potential. There's not even like any certain situations whatsoever. Like you can only fabricate those, trying to find out like what the next thing is without taking the step yourself, like trying to be sure of it, trying to direct that path instead of just being cool with like, no, if that was the case, I'd already be there. If I already knew that, I'd already be there and have experienced it. And like you can't.
No,
you can't.
And
like,
you may never. Half the things in your head that you've been thinking about the future, you'll probably never experience.
Right.
Not in the way you think you will.
At all. Or like response to any, like saying something or, sharing more, showing more, feeling like more relaxed and authentic in general for the most part. And like a hesitation about, sharing more of myself. Like there's no guarantee out there. And like, thinking about it even right now, it's like I'm just tying myself up, kind of trying to, comprehend something, figure something out.
Well, you're the only one who can tie yourself up. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the fun part about it. But this is why I laugh so fucking much.
Yeah.
This is why.
The absurdity.
At the absurdity of thinking I could resolve that absurdity. Getting so caught up in trying to be good at life, which is fucking ridiculous. When you hear it, you're just like, I got to be good at living. Okay, we'll just keep breathing.
Just everything you've been doing, keep doing that.
You got this.
Keep it up.
You got this.
You're all right.
And you're like everything, even the shit that I'm ashamed of, like even the things that I worried about, which is just living. The things that I'm ashamed about is making choices. I'm ashamed to show up as I'm showing up. It's like, yes, but showing up doesn't have to be something that has this negative connotation, that has this weight. Or when we're talking about like sharing yourself, it's like you're sharing curiosities. I'm curious about this topic. I'm curious about this. And sharing that curiosity is happening in the content through cooking and weed reviews, the strain reviews and the restaurants and the local businesses. Like that's where our curiosity is falling right now, and that's what we're sharing. And it feels so personal sometimes, and it feels so raw because there's no filter, there's no image. It's not like we're sharing it with in a certain way so that it can be viewed. We're not trying to control the perception that we imagine it's going to have. We're sharing something as it's happening, And I think that's pretty cool. And that's what adds to the lightness. You know, the other day I was saying that, you know, hanging out with you guys and doing all this feels a lot like going to my friend's house, meeting with friends and going to their house to meet them, to go hang out and to go run around. And it feels like we just finished school and it's summertime and we're hanging out and we're knocking on the doors. Is Timmy home? We're ready to hang out. Can he come out to play? You know, and just, and in that lightness, like all those summers, all that lightness that I remember was being so invested in the moment, being so present, doing, you know, hanging out with your friends was all that you wanted to do. And when you were hanging out with them, you weren't thinking of doing other things. You weren't thinking of how you were hanging out. You were laughing, joking, playing games, making choices, playing with reality, seeing what happens with no expectation, with no plan. There was no agenda when you were hanging out in the summer after school. You had like little ideas, but you would have it and then go do it. You know, so it wasn't like you had to have this big outline, and I feel that, but I still feel nervous about the DU Raw that we just got ready for, that we're in the middle of, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's a Raw, it's another one. It's a, you know, just like, oh, but so what?
Yeah.
So what that I feel nervous? So what? Like, and then it goes back to feeling like it's just chatting with friends, it's just hanging out with friends, and yet this is also kicking ass in business. This is also hanging out with, you know, hi everybody, thank you for joining us. This is hanging out with people that in the comment section and hearing what they have to say, and people on social media, and thank you for spending your time with us and hanging out because you can, not because you're here to unleash something or recognize something or make it into work.
Yeah, just hanging out, chatting. So yeah, appreciate everyone for tuning in, and like that's what this is very much becoming more so. You know, the shift with, and I call it like a shift as if there's been some sort of, you know, point where it's like, oh, the podcast shifted from more cerebral to like about the application, but like the whole time you zoom out, it was whatever someone is gonna come here and listen to and take from them. And so anytime I'm like, oh, the podcast is taking a shift, it's like I'm just talking about myself.
Yeah.
Like, I've taken a shift, and I'm realizing how much it's more so about the application and just showing up and like being willing to show up to things. And that like showing up isn't just showing up to a event or a party or a situation. Showing up is when like you're in a situation with a person and you start to feel really awkward and uncomfortable, and then just being like, okay, but maybe someone else is feeling that too. Maybe they're feeling that too. Maybe it's like, maybe we're feeling the same thing right now, and to take ownership of that and assume like you're just feeling your own sort of stuff can make it immediately super personal, instead of like, oh no, there's situations at hand. And that, I think, it kind of goes hand in hand with just with paying attention, like recognizing situations that you're in and like being sensitive to them. You start to feel more of, you know, stuff that I say is personal to you or comes from you, but it's really just like, am I making it personal? Like, am I making things personal to me? Am I turning it into some sort of story or something, assuming that like that's actually what's going on, that I actually ever know, you know, what's going on, and trying to make sense of that, instead of just like, you know, even in moments where you're hesitant and not feeling, you know, feeling more tense or thinking about yourself or whatever, like jumping in is like, okay, that's been the case. And sometimes, you know, you can keep assuming it's like, oh, sunk cost now. I've been thinking about myself a bunch, and then beat yourself up for thinking about yourself, and that whole pointless fucking train. Or you
call
just
that the Catholic loop.
Oh yeah. Or, you know, you can look at it and be like, okay, I could keep doing that, but that just keeps getting me back to this spot, or I could stop, you know, and not assume that there's something more you can judge yourself for that's going to help mitigate that, you know, the thoughts, using thoughts to overcome thoughts.
Right. Using thoughts to overcome thoughts. And then what? More thoughts.
Yeah.
I love it. That and then what? It feels like it should be a game, where, and then what, you get to see all the things, like if this happens and then what? If things went wrong and then what? I would, some things would change, if I did something wrong, then it's like I could learn from that. And then what? I could apply that. And then what? Then maybe I could feel more relaxed. And then what? Maybe I could feel comfortable just being here. And I love that it kind of just leads you back to that, just because Ray was talking about that. And he was just saying it will lead you pretty much to the point where you're just okay being here. So that's a lot of our fears are based on, is that you're worried about just being here right now in your life, as your life, for you to be the experience, the source of that experience. You just want to be okay here right now. And it's so, when we think about, I'm taking something personally, I just made it about me. I just made it about how this is impacting the concept of me, and how it's either a threat or it's either something that's supporting and validating the concept. But that's really what it feels like to me when I'm taking things personally, is I brought the offended person to take things personally, because it's really not, it doesn't have to be a problem unless I make it.
That was damn good. That was well said. You brought the offended person with you.
Because, and what made me, or what helped me see this, was that the same behavior, I will sometimes give people a pass for or not. So that showed me, well, then I guess it's really not the behavior, it's my judgment of the behavior,
Yeah.
right? I made plans with person A and then person B. Person A and person B both blow me off with no notice, no text, no nothing. I am pissed at person A, and I'm like, okay to reschedule with person B. So is making plans and breaking plans really so bad? No, shit happens. Shit happens.
That's it.
Either we're making plans again or we're not.
Yeah.
I actually changed it to just life happens.
Oh, yes.
I've actually been saying that to
life
people for like the
happens.
last decade, where they're like, man, I'm so sorry this didn't run. Life happens to all of us. And that's really it. Like, you're not in control. You're not in control. There's shit gonna happen, and it's just so funny. We take it all so fucking seriously, and it's just because, frankly, we've made life very serious, especially now. You got to worry about your bills. You got to worry about your fucking, your environment as a whole, because you don't know your fucking neighbors. Your boss doesn't really know you as a person. The cops are fucking strangers. Like, everything's different now. It's very different. We've made things very scary, and we don't realize that it's only perpetuated through our fear, because that's what drives us apart, which makes it even worse.
Divide and conquer.
And so it actually becomes, like, faith or die. Like, it really does come down to, you are going to either fucking let go, or this society is going to fucking crumble around you, leaving you nothing but what you've had the whole time, which was you.
Yeah, because all the things going on in society really, like, it can make you feel alone when it's not like, whereas having like more community involvement, knowing your neighbors, all those things, like it kind of expands you. Like, we expand via relationships and like interpersonal, like in-person relationships, not just the social media stuff, because like that's not it. Like, that's not reality. Those connections, the ways that you interact, even like texting, like, there's it's like a tool, of course, but like that in and of itself isn't really connecting. Like, you have a friend you text like a couple times a year, like that's not really that same sort of connection, but it does, I don't know, it can make it seem like you're not as, the less interactions you have, like the more, I mean, that's with everything, the less interactions you have, the more fear you're going to have of them. The less you jump in, the more you're going to have fear of just jumping into things. The more you jump in, you have less fear of jumping into things. It's like, it's the doing of it. It's the actions.
And remembering you're never really afraid of the thing. Like, you're never really afraid of jumping into things. You're afraid of jumping into your idea of what that means.
Yeah.
And jumping into things is actually just keep moving forward. It's the easiest thing. You're doing it right now. You just jumped into this moment. Now you've jumped into this moment, and you will continue to do that for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Right? It's just when you have an idea of what jumping in means, that's where the fear comes in.
Mhm.
Because now there's the idea of you facing the idea of what, the unknown means, of what jumping in means. And that's a big thing. Because if you have a small idea of you, then the idea of the unknown becomes fucking huge by contrast. Right? And that's the problem. And so people try to boost up the idea of themselves. They're like, yeah, if I make myself seem really fucking big, really strong, done lots of things, then all of a sudden, exactly.
Blow the idea up.
Right? Because it hates that. Uncertainty hates it when I blow myself up like this, and it makes me look scary. Right? But that's what we try to do. Is we try to change we try to change the contrast instead of realizing that only exists in fiction. The game itself exists in fiction. You're battling a fucking ghost.
Phantom.
Yeah, that's what you're doing, but it's as strong as you are.
Yeah. It's as scary as you make it. It's I was thinking about how when we're thinking I'm jumping into things and I'm nervous, I guess. So I was thinking about how when you're doing something for the first time and you're nervous, and you're usually nervous because you're judging your attempt before you've even made it. And when you've done that same thing that you were worried about doing 100 times and it starts to become second nature, what I think is happening is just that you're no longer thinking about it before you do it. In the beginning, there was a lot of thinking before the doing, and then you're doing, and the amount of thinking before the doing shrinks, and you're shortening the gap between the thought of what you're about to do and the actual doing of it. The more you do it, and then we call that second nature. You don't think about it anymore. It's just option, action, and you're shortening the gap between noticing the option and applying it. And so I was just thinking about that, and it's the thinking, I think, shortens because it becomes less believable. The reason to be nervous before you did that thing is less believable the more you do it, and then you get closer to that second nature thing where you're like, nervous? I've fucking done this 1,000 times. That's so absurd.
Why would you be nervous about that? And you forget.
Yeah.
Because of that familiarity thing. This is just the process of intelligence. We talked about this the other day in the episode.
Yeah.
Right? Just jump in and don't run. If you can, just jump in, don't run away.
Yeah.
And your intelligence will find a way.
Yeah.
It will understand your environment eventually if you just pay attention.
Yeah. And like continue to do that, because there is that sort of, process. And it's like, sometimes it can feel like you're in it or you're not, but it's like, it's not that either. It's still moment to moment, day to day, jumping in and just continuing to, and then not assume that you should be doing more. It's just the things that make sense, because like the assumptions that you're making about what to do, where to focus, it's like all control based. The assumptions of how to do things or what to do, or like even planning to some degree. It's like to some degree go for it, but like a lot of it's going to be assumptions of just like how something should happen based on what you want, instead of the faith that's like doesn't give you as much of that sense of control, but at least you're informed by what's actually happening instead of so many other thoughts. But and then as you start making more decisions, it's like even if it does take you a bit to make those, like that indecisiveness, I feel so much these days, I'm not gonna lie.
You'll get tired of it.
Oh yeah,
that's what
that's all it is.
That's all it is.
Eventually I just pick stuff.
I'm just gonna pick something so I can stop thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like realizing you're gonna get there at some point anyway, and like you're gonna be tense as shit the more you're just like keep going back and forth with whatever it is, whether it's picking a couch for your apartment or posting a video on social media. Like it can be anything. Sending an email, responding to a text, like you can spend a long time just going back and
future.
Yeah. And then trying to like navigate how it all relates together and all of the decisions and how they're gonna get to this one point, as if even the decisions, which are cohesive in a sense, don't feel very cohesive. You're deciding about different things, but those are informing each other or each other as well. The different decisions you make during the day. But it's kind of like everything we do is sort of decision based, and so even hesitancy is like indecisiveness for a moment, like in speaking, for example.
Unless you are choosing to hesitate.
True.
Right, because you're sensitive to the moment and you're choosing to, a pregnant pause. Pauses are so powerful. People don't make, they're like, I must speak ever so slowly. And you're just
really draw people.
Oh my goodness, we're in the theater, and just being able to play with, because not making a decision is making a decision. There is no way that you do not participate. You are always participating in life, whether you are the silent person at the dinner table or the person who is swept up in the gift of gab that night and is just serenading everybody with amazing stories and epic tales. And the person that's silent is just like so glued into the story, hasn't said a single word, and yet they're adding just as much to that experience as the person who is doing the more active portion. Not making a decision is a decision. Not speaking is a contribution. You are always involved in the experience because you are the experience, no matter what it looks like. But we forget that. We think it's supposed, it has to look a certain way, and we get caught up in judging it. But I love being super. I love enjoying the theatrics and exploring and being playful. And what came to mind is a quote by Robert Frost, which was, I can sum up everything I've learned in life in 3 words: it goes on. Like life goes on, like the moment. So even when you think I'm stuck, I haven't said anything, I've messed up, it's like this moment is not over. The story is not done being written. You're still in the midst of potential, even when you think that you have wasted it. You never run out of it. You can always, to move forward isn't necessarily an option that you can just dismiss.
It's not a sunk cost, and like at some point you can like stop doing the assumption that you're doing something wrong. It's like that'll just keep you going in the same track. Like it's the same shit,
and you know that,
and like
that
you don't need a checkpoint either. Like in the middle of a situation, you can be like, I'm gonna stop doing that. You got to start somewhere, all the time. And so I think sometimes, you'll look for a point where it's like, oh, checkpoint, like, oh, new day tomorrow. Oh, like certain time period. Oh, this meeting, this call, this thing that like we can almost feel like, or I can almost feel like it's like a commitment at some point. It's like, oh, well, I couldn't just, relax now because I don't, deserve to be able to do that because I've been beating myself up and deserve to get beat up more by myself.
That'll help you. That's going to teach you.
It makes sense, right?
Absolutely. Eventually, you'll figure out how to relax that way.
Oh
my
God.
Yeah.
A great question I love to ask is, how's that going for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That one stings sometimes because you're like, okay, so beating myself up more, how's that going for you? Fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to do it. And then you think, why am I doing this? Because you've convinced yourself, and it's like, how sure are you that you do need to do that?
Well, if I don't do that, I'm not in control. I have no sense of control if I'm not beating myself up, or I'm not thinking about myself in the future. Like I have no sense of control. I just have to keep going.
Right.
And that's super unsatisfying until you do it.
Yeah.
Until you do it and you keep doing it, and then you go, oh fuck, there's a whole other thing happening here. There's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Life.
She's sensitive.
Yeah. That said, we are down to the last 30 seconds here. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody who can join us today on our new Thursday schedule. We're going to be on Patreon right after this for a tier 2 call. Join us if you can. Do remember, actually, this week is the last early access week for tier 2 Patreon supporters for our Port Alberni retreat. So if you are a tier 1, you get access on Sunday. If you're not on Patreon at all, it's going to be another week and a bit. But if you want to come to this Port Alberni retreat, do buy your ticket as soon as you can. We've already sold out more than half. They're going to go quick. So join us. It's going to be a fantastic experience. If you haven't talked to somebody who's been to the retreat yet, go to our Discord. Go to the retreat plan section. There's a lot of people there who will be happy to tell you about their experience. But this has been a blast. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, listener.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. And we'll see you on Sunday, if not in 15 minutes.
All right, sounds great.